Reborn in 1980. The moment I opened my eyes was my eldest brother's dying moment, holding my hand as he entrusted his wife and child to me. In my previous life, I agreed in a daze, and it ended up causing my sister-in-law to work herself to death. In this life, I directly laid down the law. If you dare die, I'll go back to my hometown tomorrow. That night, heavy snow sealed off the mountain, and everyone thought I had gone drinking. No one knew that I took a dip net into the mountains. When I was woken up by the noise, I still hadn't realized that I had been reborn. Before my eyes was my sister-in-law, who had died more than 40 years ago, standing by the Kong wrapped in a filthy padded cotton coat. The room was about a dozen square meters. Right inside the door was the heated Kong bed. An oil lamp rested against a pinewood cabinet, and beside the cabinet was a poster of a chubby baby holding a bright red carp. This was my eldest brother's small room. I was alive, back in 1980, in Shuangmailing, northeast China. Just a second ago, I was still visiting my eldest brother and sister-in-law's graves when a cerebral hemorrhage struck and I died on the spot. Right now, my eldest brother was still alive, lying on the Kong in the east room, so thin he was skin and bones, pulling my hand as he gave his last instructions. Shaoan, big brother wants to ask you a favor. You've lost your job, and the family has no money. My body is giving out soon. After I'm gone, take good care of your sister-in-law. It won't be easy for her to raise the child on her own. I knew that in my previous life, my eldest brother killed himself tonight. That year, when I was 10, I lost my parents, and my eldest brother took me in at Shuangmailing. But I was an ungrateful fool, hanging around with a bunch of hooligans all day, drinking and gambling without missing a thing. My eldest brother borrowed money and begged favors to get me into the county construction team, but in less than 3 months I was fired. My eldest brother was bedridden, and the family couldn't even afford food. He didn't want to be a burden, so he entrusted his wife to me and left that very night. The following spring, my sister-in-law fell ill from overwork and died as well. Now that I've been given another life, I will never allow this to happen again. Big brother, just focus on recovering. I'll find my own wife, and I'll take care of the firewood and food. If you dare leave, I'll go back to my hometown tomorrow, and I won't care about sister-in-law or the child either. My eldest brother was so angry his eyes bulged, and he couldn't speak. My nephew Fang An poked out his little head and said he was hungry. My sister-in-law broke off a piece of coarse flour flatbread, and the children said pitifully, "Mom, I want to eat meat. You look like meat to me." The family's pig was sold for 2.5 jiao to pay off debts, and the remaining meat wasn't stored properly, so wolves carried off most of it. I went back into the room, wrapped myself in my padded cotton coat, and picked up the dip net and chopping knife. In my previous life, I worked as a forest ranger in Minshan, and later made money from medicinal herbs in the mountains. Northeast China is rich in natural bounty, with roe deer there for the clubbing and fish there for the scooping. My eldest brother's illness was caused by malnutrition. First, I'll get meat on the table for the whole family and nurse everyone back to health, then trade pelts and medicinal herbs for money. Making this family a 10,000 yuan household within a year won't be a problem. In my previous life, my eldest brother's family spent all their effort taking care of me. This time, I'll be the one supporting this family. Just as I stepped out, Xiao Shuang arrived. This man's nickname was Air Lungzi, one of my fair-weather friends, and in my previous life, he cheated me out of money plenty of times. The moment he opened his mouth, he wanted to borrow 10 yuan, saying he needed to buy something for the girl he had been set up with. "No, my dear big brother, I'll pay you back double afterward." I slapped his hand away with a smack and kicked him straight into the ditch. "Get as far away as you can." "Fang An, do you believe I'll tell Chen Yuan about you getting fired?" Xiao Shuang shouted from behind at the top of his lungs. I laughed. In my previous life, he let it slip while drinking, and Chen Yuan broke up with me the next day, leaving me depressed for a long time, while my sister-in-law held the family together alone and worked herself to death. Now that I've lived this life over again, I can't wait to cut ties with Chen Yuan sooner. Too lazy to bother with him, I strode westward. Early winter in northeast China was bitterly cold, 20 to 30 degrees below zero. But a young body really is good, full of vigor, and I didn't feel cold even after walking all the way. If it were at the end of my previous life, I wouldn't even have dared imagine it. All along the way, my eyes stayed fixed on the stacks of firewood by the roadside. Heavy snow seals off the mountains, and with nothing to eat up there, pheasants love to burrow into woodpiles and stay there all winter. It had just snowed today, so when pheasants come out to forage and then burrow back in, they leave traces in the snow. Sure enough, I found tracks where something had been thrown out beneath the woodpile on the west end. Catching pheasants takes some know-how. These things can fly, and without snares or nets they're hard to catch. But in my previous life, when I was a forest ranger, I learned bird calls. Chirp chirp, pheasants are extremely sensitive to the calls of their own kind. After only a few calls, a little head poked out from under the woodpile. I was already gripping the hand net tightly. The instant the pheasant spread its wings to fly, I suddenly scooped it up. Flap flap. I grabbed it in one go and slit its throat with a knife. Carrying the pheasant home, Zhao Shuang caught up with me again from behind, drooling at the sight of it. Split half when we meet. If you want to eat, catch one yourself. If you won't split half with me, I can't guarantee I'll keep my mouth shut. If Chun Yuan finds out you were fired, will she still marry you? I sneered inwardly. But on the surface I pretended to be troubled. Then you really have to help me. Hurry up and tell her. Zhao Shuang was dumbfounded. Are you fucking sick? Hurry up and go. It's getting dark. Watch out for wolves. He headed north cursing under his breath, muttering that he'd break me and Chun Yuan up. A wolf howl came from not far away. Zhao Shuang shuddered in fright, fell flat on his face, and scrambled away, rolling and crawling. I smiled and continued on my way. Suddenly, with a thump, a wild rabbit by the roadside bounced a few times in the snow and vanished in the blink of an eye. Good stuff. The meat can be eaten, the pelt can be sold for money, and making a pair of gloves for Ying and Siching wouldn't be bad either. Later I'll make a snare and see if I can catch a couple. By the time I got home, the water was already boiling. Uncle is back. The two kids trotted out to greet me. It's cold outside. Hurry back into the house. Take this inside and stew it to eat. I handed the pheasant to Ying. Oh, we get to eat meat. Siching jumped high with excitement. Once inside, I used a ladle to scoop hot water to pluck the feathers, then opened the belly and took out the liver and heart. I cut open the gizzard and peeled off that yellow sticky membrane. This is chicken gizzard lining, which helps strengthen the stomach and aid digestion, and can also treat kidney stones. Dried, it can be sold for money. Uncle, can't this be eaten? Siching pointed at the chicken intestines and asked. There are worms in there. If you eat it, you'll get sick. Sister-in-law didn't say much either. I was the one who got the chicken, so we'd handle it however I said. I picked out a few nice-looking feathers and used copper coins to make shuttlecocks for the two kids. I hadn't touched this in decades since my previous life, so my hands were a little rusty, but the two children were overjoyed holding them in their hands. The chicken was brought to the table, piping hot. Sister-in-law first filled a bowl with soup, tore the chicken meat apart, and put it in, then fed big brother spoonful by spoonful. Here, have a taste. Shaoan just caught this chicken. Chicken? Shaoan, how did you catch it? There's a co-worker on the construction team. His dad's a hunter, so I picked up a few tricks from him. I casually made up a lie. As big brother drank the soup, the pallor in his face eased a little. Sister-in-law secretly wiped away tears. Her husband had been paralyzed for so long, and this was the first time she had seen him improve. It was all thanks to her brother-in-law. From a big bowl of stewed chicken, big brother ate 2 pieces of breast meat, while sister-in-law only ate the head and the rump. I gnawed on a bit of neck and drank some soup, and gave the rest all to the two kids. Once the pheasant's innards were removed, there were only a little over 2 gene left, nowhere near enough to eat. The two kids polished it off, and after finishing the meat, they drank the soup. And when the soup was gone, they sucked on their fingers. My nose stung. These two kids really had been deprived of meat. In my previous life on the construction team, every month when I got paid, I'd go buy meat skewers. Whatever was left was either lent to Zhao Shuang for drinking or used to buy things for Chun Yuan. I never once thought about these two kids. Thinking about it now, I was really fucking not human. After we finished eating, I pulled 22 yuan out of my pocket. Sister-in-law, this is my pay for this month. Take these 20 yuan for emergencies. I'll keep 2. Shaoan, keep this money for your own use. Sister-in-law quickly tried to refuse. You just came back, and there's not enough firewood at home to burn. Ying and Siching have to go to school too, and there are plenty of places that need money. I stuffed the money into her pocket. Big brother smiled in relief on the Kong. Shaoan, you. Same as I said before, if you say you won't care about me, then really don't. If you don't believe me, just try it. I quickly cut him off, afraid he'd start giving his last wishes again. Back in my room, I lay on the Kong, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. My mind was full of the image of the children sucking their fingers. I decided not to sleep at all, grabbed my padded coat, and went to the side room to rummage for wire. These days, wire gets taken apart and reused over and over. I found a few rusty pieces in the corner, picked through them, and made a few snares. Taking advantage of the night, I slipped out the front gate and headed west to look for places to set them. Just after I stepped out the gate, the light in the east room was still on. What was that sound? Big brother asked groggily. Sister-in-law, with a coat draped over her shoulders, looked out the window. Xiao An went out. Standing by the Kong, she frowned. He couldn't have gone out drinking again, could he? If he did, then so be it. Big brother sighed. At least he knows to get the children something to eat. He'll change slowly. Sister-in-law said nothing and slowly sat down on the edge of the Kong. She thought I'd gone off again tonight to fool around with Lungzi and the others. Zhao Shuang came looking for me during the day and spoke loudly. She saw him through the window. Back when I used to go out drinking, I wouldn't be back until well past midnight. The wind outside was biting, and the snow crunched underfoot. With the wire snares tucked against me, I wondered where I might find rabbit tracks. That rabbit just now was spotted by the roadside near a stack of firewood. In this season, rabbits come down the mountain to look for food too. They hide in snowdrifts during the day and come out to move around at dusk. To set snares, you have to find rabbit runs, the routes rabbits often take. You can spot their paw prints in the snow. I felt my way into the woods at the west end of the village, using the reflection off the snow to look for tracks. I hadn't gone far before I found a string of rabbit tracks, stretching from the woods all the way to the firewood stacks on the west side of the village. I found a narrow gap between two stacks of firewood, tied the snare to a sturdy dry branch, and adjusted it to the right size. It's easy for a rabbit's head to go in and hard to get back out. This snare only gets tighter the more it struggles. As long as it passes through here, it won't get away. After setting the first one, I followed the tracks and found 2 more rabbit runs, making 3 snares in total. My hands were so cold they were stiff, so I rubbed them and breathed warm air on them before feeling my way back in the dark. Back in my previous life, when I was a forest ranger, all this was everyday stuff. Which gully had roe deer, which hill had wild boars, what medicinal herbs to gather in what season. I knew it all like the back of my hand. The snares I set now aren't the best, but they'll do. I'll get up early tomorrow and check them. If something gets caught, I'll stew a pot of rabbit meat for the children, then keep the hide and have sister-in-law make a pair of gloves. When I got home, I quietly pushed the door open. To my surprise, sister-in-law was still awake, sitting in the main room. The moment she saw me come in, she sprang to her feet. Xiao An, you're back? I nodded. Sister-in-law, why are you still up? She didn't answer, only gave me a furtive once-over, as if to make sure I wasn't dead drunk again. Seeing that I didn't smell of alcohol and wasn't carrying a liquor bottle, she clearly relaxed. There's hot water warming in the pot. Soak your feet before sleeping. Wolves have been around the work team these past 2 days. You don't wander around outside so much. After saying that, she went into the east room. My heart warmed. In my previous life, whoever cared about me like this? I owe this whole family. Now that heaven has shown mercy and let me come back, no matter what, I have to get life back on track. I got up before dawn the next day. I hadn't slept soundly all night, worrying about those snares. While the sky was just beginning to lighten, I slipped out the door on tiptoe. The firewood stack to the west was covered with a layer of frost, and the snares I set last night were still where I left them. When I got closer, there were signs of a struggle in the snow beside the first snare, but the snare was empty. My heart sank. It must have caught something that broke free. I walked onto the second snare, and from a distance I saw a gray shape twitching on the snow. Well, a fat rabbit had been caught by the hind leg, kicking a pit into the snow. I rushed up and pinned it down in one move, but the rabbit was still struggling desperately. It weighed a good 3 or 4 gene, with sleek gray fur and plenty of spirit. I pulled a small knife from my pocket, killed it on the spot, then tied its hind legs with hemp rope and hung it from my waist. The third snare had no movement, so I tightened it again before heading home. The moment I pushed open the gate, I happened to run into my sister-in-law coming out to pour water. Xiao An, you're up this early. Is that a wild rabbit? Her eyes went wide, and she almost dropped the water ladle. I set a few snares last night. Didn't expect to actually catch one. I lifted the rabbit up. Tonight we'll stew rabbit, give my brother something nourishing, and let the kids satisfy their craving too. My sister-in-law's lips moved, and after a long while she managed to squeeze out, weren't you out drinking last night? I didn't have time for that. I didn't say more. Carrying the rabbit inside, I started skinning it. I peeled the rabbit skin off whole, then turned it over and rubbed the surface grease off in the snow. I knew this worked like the back of my hand. I left the remaining meat to my sister-in-law to stew, and sliced up the rabbit liver and heart to boil some soup for Siching later. Uncle, you caught meat again. Siching came running out of the east room barefoot, with his sister chasing after him and yelling for him to put on his shoes. We're having rabbit tonight. Put your shoes on, then go tend the stove. Oh, at last, the house had a bit of warmth in it. My brother leaned against the pillow, watching me through the crack of the door, and I couldn't tell what he was thinking. After a while, he called me over. Xiaoan, what time did you get back last night? Your sister-in-law waited up for you half the night. Everyone at home thought you'd gone out drinking again. Big brother, I told you, I'll support this family. There's no need to worry about food and drink. I wasn't out fooling around. I was getting some meat for the children. Focus on recovering. Nothing matters more than that. My brother let out a sigh and said nothing more, but his eyes were a little red. I meant every word. In my previous life, I let my brother and sister-in-law down, made them worry and work for me all their lives, and in the end, they never even got to live in peace. In this life, I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay right here with them and support this family little by little. But I knew clearly in my heart that just a few snares and a few pheasants were far from enough. If I wanted to get life back on track, I had to make use of the resources in the mountains, pelts, herbs, game. Each and every one of them could be turned into money. Once I saved up some capital, I'd think about other things. In my previous life, I'd spent decades struggling through these mountains and forests. I knew what was valuable and where to go in each season. But that was all for later. The urgent thing now was to help my brother recover, make sure the children could eat meat at every meal, and keep my sister-in-law from being so exhausted. Outside, it was fully light now. The sun climbed up from behind Saddle Mountain, shining on the snow in the yard until it glowed white. I threw another armful of firewood into the east room's stove pit, and the flames leaped up as white steam rose from the big iron pot. The house now had the smell of cooking smoke and the smell of being alive. My sister-in-law poked her head out from the main room. Xiaoan, the rabbit is done stewing. Take a bowl of soup to your brother first. I answered and carried the steaming hot soup toward the east room. As I passed the crack in the door, I heard my sister-in-law mutter softly, "Go to sleep first. I'll wait a little longer for Xiaoan. Wolves have come by the production team these past 2 days. I'll go to sleep after he gets back from drinking, in case something happens." Qin Yanfang straightened the bedding and stared at the main gate. Xiaoan is grown up now and can take care of himself, so hurry up and get some sleep. Fang Deming urged softly. You go ahead and sleep. Qin Yanfang scooted farther onto the Kong, still staring outside. Though Fang Deming said that, he also looked toward the main gate. The Kong was heated very warmly at night, and it felt comfortable against their waists, but neither of them could fall asleep. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fang An had no idea his older brother and sister-in-law were waiting for him. Carrying the snares, he headed west, carefully observing the small footprints along the roadside. Most of these footprints were oval-shaped, shallow in the front and back, and deep in the middle. The footprints in front were relatively large, while the ones in back were relatively small. At a glance, it was obvious they were rabbit tracks. Of course, that alone wasn't enough to be certain. In the northeast, there were also foxes and wildcats, as well as plenty of feral cats and rats. And the footprints of these animals all looked similar. In the dark of night, it was hard to see clearly, so they weren't easy to tell apart. But rabbits have small front paws and large hind paws, and they move by hopping. This meant that the marks of their hind paws were always directly in front of their front paws, and they always appeared in pairs, making them easy to identify. Fang An followed the tracks forward and didn't stop even when he reached the place where he had found the rabbit. There was only one set of tracks here, so there was just one rabbit coming and going. Setting a snare here wouldn't catch anything. In truth, there wasn't any great method for catching wild rabbits. You could only make snares and set traps. Snares were very easy to make. First, bend iron wire into a loop, control the size, then make a slip knot, and that's it. As long as the rabbit touches it when passing by, the snare tightens and tangles around it, and you'll basically be able to catch it. But the hard part was how to make the rabbit touch it. Fang An continued searching along the tracks and didn't stop until he reached the corner on the west side. Near the wooden fence at this corner were 5 or 6 rows of small footprints, along with some rabbit droppings, clearly showing that rabbits often ran through here. One rabbit couldn't be caught, but with more rabbits, the odds of catching one naturally became higher. Fang An crouched down, took out 2 snares, and tied them to the wooden fence posts. After setting them up, he tugged on them with his hand to make sure the rabbit wouldn't be able to drag them away before considering the job done. Afterward, Fang An continued west, looking for places with lots of tracks to set more snares. Only after he had used up all 13 snares in his hands did he turn and head home. On the way back, there was no need to look at footprints, so he naturally walked faster than when he came. In the blink of an eye, he was at his front gate. Fang An kicked aside the brick propping the door shut and entered the yard, braced the main gate with a wooden bar, and jogged back into the house. Xiaoan, you're back. Hearing the commotion, Qin Yanfang came out, and her voice nearly made Fang An jump. Sis-in-law, you're still not asleep? Seeing you go out, I was thinking I should say something to you. Wolves have come by the production team these past 2 days, so it's too dangerous to go out at night. If there's nothing important, go to sleep early. Chen Yanfang reminded him with a smile. Ah, I just wanted to tell you. If you've got something to do, then go do it. Your brother and I are going to sleep first. Without waiting for Fang An to explain, Chen Yanfang went back to the east room. Fang An froze at the doorway for a moment, but quickly understood. In the past, when he went out drinking with Zhao Shuang, he always came home in the middle of the night. In the first few years, his older brother and sister-in-law couldn't stand it and said a few words to him. Fang An agreed that very night, but the next day he borrowed money to go drinking again, causing his older brother and sister-in-law to follow behind him and pay off his debts. Every time the two of them spoke to him, it ended the same way. So gradually they didn't dare say anything or ask anything, afraid that he would go borrow money again. But the two of them still worried that it wasn't safe for him to come back at night, and they often waited until he got home before going to sleep. Especially his older brother Fang Deming. Ever since their parents passed away, Fang Deming had only Fang An left as his one biological younger brother, and he was terrified something might happen to him. He worked all day during the daytime, then couldn't sleep well at night waiting for Fang An, and the next day he still had to go out to work again. For his illness worsening to this extent, Fang An bears part of the blame. Click. With red-rimmed eyes, Fang An locked the door, returned to the small room, closed the door, and slapped himself hard across the face. If he hadn't been such a bastard back then, Big Brother couldn't have gotten this sick. And sister-in-law wouldn't have worn herself out and died so early, and Ying and Xiqing wouldn't have become orphans because of it. In his previous life, he owed Big Brother and sister-in-law far too much, and he owed this family far too much as well. But fortunately, he had been reborn. From now on, not only would he no longer drag this family down, he would instead make this family better and better, and make up for everything he owed them. The next day, it was still dark. Fang An got up, folded the quilt, grabbed his thick cotton-padded jacket, and had just wrapped himself in it when he heard a swishing sound coming from outside. Sister-in-law, why are you up so early? As soon as Fang An stepped out of the room, he saw Chen Yanfang holding a big broom and sweeping snow. It snowed a little last night, and since I couldn't sleep, I came out to sweep a bit. Are you heading out? Chen Yanfang asked tentatively. I set a few snares for rabbits last night. Stop sweeping for now. When I get back, I'll do it. If I go too late, someone might take them. As Fang An spoke, he reached to take the big broom. No need, it's only a little snow. You go do what you need to do. Chen Yanfang refused with a faint smile, not knowing whether her brother-in-law was telling the truth. Little uncle, you set rabbit snares? Fang Xiqing had sharp ears. He came jogging over from the outhouse. When we get back, we'll stew rabbit. Fang An scraped a finger across his nephew's little nose. Then I'm going to catch rabbits too. What are you going for? Chen Yanfang scolded irritably. I'm going to help little uncle catch rabbits. Rabbits run really fast. Little uncle can't catch them by himself. Fang Xiqing tilted up his little head. How do you chase rabbits? Go on, go back inside and fold your quilt. Chen Yanfang was afraid Fang An had made the whole thing up and hadn't set any rabbit snares at all. Mom, I want to go. Fang Xiqing tugged at Chen Yanfang and pleaded. All right, I'll take you. Go back inside and put your clothes on properly. Don't get cold. Fang An smiled dotingly. Oh, we're going to catch rabbits. Fang Xiqing jumped high with excitement, ran back into the room, grabbed his coat, and dashed out. Fang Xiqing, your quilt still isn't folded. You're making me fold it for you again? Fang Ying grabbed a feather duster and chased after him. Sis, I'm going with little uncle to catch rabbits. I'll fold it when I get back. Fang Xiqing hid behind Fang An as he explained. Catch rabbits? Mom, can I go? Fang Ying blinked her big eyes as she asked. Go put your clothes on. Before Chen Yanfang could agree, Fang An answered first. Fang Ying immediately went back into the room to put on her coat. Sister-in-law, the three of us will be back in a little while. Fang An went to the shed to get a basket, then took the two children west to look for the snares. Chen Yanfang stood at the doorway, still not having come back to her senses. Did Xiaoan really go set snares last night? He even knows how to do that? Outside, Fang An carried a basket on his back and held one child with each hand. Little uncle, where are we going to catch rabbits? Fang Xiqing looked up and asked. How do you catch rabbits by chasing them? Little uncle, did you set snares? Although Fang Ying had never caught any, she had heard adults talk about how rabbits were caught. Just up ahead. Fang An led the two of them to the fork in the road. On the wooden stakes at the fork, the two snares were empty, and there were no rabbit footprints to be found in the snow. Little uncle, did we not catch any? Fang Xiqing squatted on the ground, puffing out his cheeks. How could they be that easy to catch? Fang An gave Fang Xiqing a kick. Little uncle, we ate meat yesterday. It's fine even if we didn't catch any. Fang An rubbed Fang An's little head, then looked ahead again. There are more snares up ahead. More? Fang Xiqing stopped rubbing his butt and took off running ahead. But he didn't know where the snares were either. After running just a few steps, he stopped again to wait for Fang An. The three of them searched along the way and found 4 or 5 in total, bringing all the snares back, but they still hadn't seen any sign of a rabbit. At first, Fang Xiqing had been walking in front, but now he was trailing slowly behind the two of them. Xiqing, tired from walking? Fang An took Fang Xiqing's hand, knowing that he only felt tired because he hadn't seen any rabbits. You insisted on coming. I won't bring you along again in the future. Before Fang Xiqing could speak, Fang An snapped back first. I'm not tired. Who said I was tired? After saying that, Fang Xiqing ran to the front again. Fang An walked to the firewood pile on the left and retrieved another empty snare. Uncle, could someone else have taken it? Fang An asked, staring at the empty snare. No. A snare tightens after it's used. This one hasn't moved at all. Don't worry. Since I said I'd bring you to catch rabbits, I'll definitely catch some. Fang An comforted them with a faint smile. Actually, there's still meat at home, and we can eat it during the new year. It's okay if we didn't catch any. Uncle, a rabbit. I saw a rabbit. Before Fang An could finish, Fang Xiqing up ahead suddenly pointed at the roadside and shouted. Where? Fang An had just been about to ask when she immediately spotted it under the roadside firewood pile. The rabbit was gray and struggling in the snare. Its color wasn't very dark, but it was still quite obvious against the snow. Uncle, there really is a rabbit. Fang An cheered, pointing at the rabbit. Fang An ran to the firewood pile, took the rabbit down and tossed it into the basket, then straightened out the snare and gripped it in his hand. This rabbit is so big. We get to eat meat again. Fang Xiqing lay over the edge of the basket, drooling with greed. Although Fang An didn't say anything, the look of anticipation in her eyes had already given her away. Fang An smiled in relief. With your uncle here, not only will we have meat to eat today, from now on we'll be able to eat meat every day. Really? Fang Xiqing blinked his big eyes, and when he saw Fang An nod, he started bouncing with excitement again. Keep it down. Don't let anyone hear. Come on, there are more up ahead. Fang An rubbed the two children's little heads and led them to look for the next one. After all, they still hadn't collected all the snares. It would be terrible if someone heard them and took them first. Now that Fang Xiqing had seen a rabbit, he didn't feel tired anymore and took the lead running ahead. In less than a few minutes, the three of them had brought back 13 snares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Uncle, 5. There are 5 rabbits. Fang Xiqing counted while leaning over the basket. 2 dead, 3 alive. Fang An stood to the side, holding up 2 broken snares with a wry smile. The first 6 snares up ahead had caught nothing, but the last 7 had all had something in them. It's just a pity that the wire on these 2 snares had badly aged and snapped, so they couldn't hold the rabbits. Otherwise, there would have been 2 more. Come on, let's go home. Once we're back, we'll stew some meat to eat. Fang An hoisted the basket onto his back and led the 2 children home. The basket was woven from willow branches and was a full meter deep, so the rabbits couldn't jump out. Fang Xiqing ran ahead. Fang An wanted to reach out and help support it, but Fang An refused. Meanwhile, on the other side, Qin Yanfang had just finished sweeping the yard and returned to the room when Fang Deming called her to the east room. What did those 2 kids go off to do? Xiaoan said he went out last night to set snares and took the 2 kids to catch rabbits. Qin Yanfang took off her shoes and climbed onto the Kong, folding up the children's quilts. Catch rabbits. Fang Deming looked suspiciously toward the main gate. Since when did Xiaoan know how to do that? How would I know? Maybe he just took the kids out to play. Mom, rabbits. Before they could finish talking, Fang Xiqing came running back into the yard shouting. Fang Xiqing, can't you keep your voice down? Fang An scolded from behind. Fang Xiqing shrank by the doorway, not daring to make a sound. Yanfang, go out and see what's going on. When Fang Deming saw the 3 of them enter the yard, he patted Qin Yanfang's arm and urged her. Qin Yanfang got off the Kong and had just stepped outside when she saw Fang An holding a chopper, was taking rabbits out of the basket, bleeding them one by one. Xiaoan, you really caught rabbits? Qin Yanfang carried her cotton shoes and closed the door. Mom, we caught them. Uncle caught them all. We'll stew some meat to eat in a bit. Fang Xiqing stared at the rabbits and drooled. All you know is eating. Qin Yanfang scolded him, then came over. How many did you catch? 5. Mom, look, these are all the snares Uncle made. Fang An pointed at the pile of wire on the ground. Chen Yanfang was stunned and kept staring at Fang An, feeling more and more that this didn't seem like her little brother-in-law. Sister-in-law, is there a knife at home? The kind that's very sharp. Fang An had finished bleeding the rabbits, but hadn't gutted them yet when he turned and asked. Yes. Will a kitchen knife do? We just had old Zhang sharpen it at the beginning of autumn. A kitchen knife. Is there a smaller one? It's for skinning the rabbits. Fang An added. A smaller one. I'll ask your elder brother. Chen Yanfang ran back to the east room again. Their father, is there a smaller knife at home? Xiaoan wants to skin the rabbits. Yes, there's one in the drawer on the south side of the wardrobe. If you get someone to sharpen it, it can still be used. Fang Deming pointed at the drawer. Xiaoan really caught rabbits? He caught them, 5 of them. 5. Fang Deming braced himself, wanting to take a look, but it was too hard to move his upper body. He strained for a long time, and sweat came out, but he still couldn't sit up. Their father, I'll bring them in for you to see in a bit. Chen Yanfang stopped him, then took the knife over to Fang An first. Xiaoan, your brother said this knife needs sharpening. I'll go find old Zhang. No need, I can do it myself. Fang An took the knife and found a large bowl. The handle of the knife was wrapped in cloth and was a little dirty. The blade wasn't chipped, and it still felt quite sharp to the touch. It would be enough to give it a simple sharpening. After sharpening the knife, Fang An skinned the rabbits first, then gutted them. If he gutted them first and took out the innards, the bodies would go limp and be harder to skin. Fortunately, he hadn't gotten rusty at this skill yet. Skinning the first one took 10 minutes, the second took less than 5 minutes, and after that he got faster and faster. After all 5 pelts were removed, he gutted the rabbits. There was nothing special about rabbit innards. The heart, liver, spleen, and kidneys could all be eaten. Of course, the testicles could be eaten too. Slice them and stir-fry them quickly, and they taste very fragrant without any fishy smell. Xiaoan, bring them in later and let your brother have a look first. He just heard you caught rabbits and wants to see them, but he still can't sit up. Chen Yanfang deliberately lowered her voice. Perfect. After gutting them, I'll go inside to wash up, and the pelts need to be put on the table. I'll go put them there. Fang Yingying said as she ran back to the east room. After Fang An finished processing the last one, he rinsed the kalongzi in the bucket and put it in the porcelain basin for his sister-in-law to carry inside. Fang Xiqing picked up the 5 rolled-up rabbit pelts and followed behind Chen Yanfang. After the 2 of them left, Fang An tidied up a bit, carried the dirty bucket outside the main gate and poured it into the drainage ditch, then went back inside. Their father, now you can take a look. Chen Yanfang cheerfully set the basin on the table. This basin was usually used for kneading dough. It wasn't exactly small or large. At the bottom were 2 big ones, and the remaining 3 were sticking out on top, visible at a glance. So many? Fang Deming clicked his tongue in amazement. There are pelts too. Uncle skinned them all. Fang Xiqing hugged the pelts and put them on the Kong. Don't put them here. The Kong is still warm, and if they're not placed properly, they could easily be ruined. Fang Deming urged Fang Xiqing to move them away, then reached out to feel the fur on the pelts and smiled in relief. Sister-in-law, where's the salt at home? The pelts need to be rubbed with salt. Fang An asked as he set down the bucket. I'll get it. Fang Yingying trotted off to the kitchen. Xiaoan, how did you catch these? Did you learn it again from your co-worker's father? Fang Deming asked doubtfully. Yeah, it's just setting a few snares. His father took us to do it before. It's pretty simple. Fang An nodded repeatedly. Big brother is really thoughtful. Even came up with the reason for me. Fang Yingying brought back the salt and handed it to Fang An. Fang An first scraped the hides clean, then spread them flat and rubbed them with salt. After sister-in-law and the 2 children washed the meat clean, he picked up the kitchen knife and chopped the rabbit meat into pieces. After finishing the 2 biggest ones, Fang An was just about to take the 3rd when sister-in-law stopped him. Xiaoan, 2 are enough to eat. This is even more than yesterday. Chen Yanfang pointed at the large sea bowl. The 2 pieces of meat on top were about to fall off, and it really couldn't hold any more. Yingying and Xiqing are growing. Let them eat a bit more. If it's all gone, I'll catch more. Fang An chopped up another small one, then took the remaining 2 outside and froze them in the snowbank, saving them for the next meal. This Xiaoan really doesn't know how to manage a household, making so much of this. Chen Yanfang switched to a bigger basin and put the 3 rabbits in it, filling up a whole big basin. If Xiaoan says to stew it, then stew it. He's also feeling sorry for the 2 kids. Fang Deming grinned. It's you 2 who keep clamoring every day that you want to eat meat. Chen Yanfang tapped Fang Xiqing's little head, complaining with her mouth, but her face was full of smiles as she carried the meat to the kitchen. Normally, when stewing rabbit, you first soak it in salt water to remove the earthy smell from the rabbit meat. But in these times, who had the time to be particular about that? Having meat to eat was good enough. Once the water was boiling, put the rabbit meat in, add more scallions and garlic to remove the smell, then put it on the stove to start stewing. Fang An and Fang Xiqing waited by the pot. Fang An wasn't idle at this time either. He went to the backyard to find a few thin pieces of wood, returned to the small room, and set up a rack, then hung up the salted hides to air dry. By the time this side was done, the rabbit meat outside was also finished stewing. Fang Xiqing came over and called out, and Fang An went to the east room. The few of them had been busy since early morning and only now got to eat. But no one felt tired. After all, there was meat to eat. Fang An and the two children gnawed on the rabbit meat. Chen Yanfang first ladled a bowl of soup and, as usual, tore the meat apart to feed Fang Deming. But after only feeding him 2 or 3 bites, Chen Yanfang suddenly caught sight of someone coming into the yard. "Who's that?" "HM. Someone's here? I'll go take a look," Fang An said, getting ready to stand up. "You keep eating, I'll go." Chen Yanfang put down her bowl and chopsticks and hurried out first. Fang An looked out the window and thought. In his previous life, around this time, news of his big brother's suicide had spread through the production team, and quite a few people had come to visit the family. But this time his big brother hadn't committed suicide, so those people probably wouldn't come. Because of that, he also didn't know who the visitor might be. While Fang An was muttering to himself here, sister-in-law's voice suddenly came from the yard. Yuan, you came to see Xiaoan, right?" Chun Yuan, wrapped in a flower-patterned cotton jacket, forced out a bit of a smile and answered softly. "Quick, come inside, it's cold outside." Chen Yanfang took Chen Yuan by the hand and brought her back inside. "Xiaoan, Yuan is here." Fang An had already heard the commotion and was waiting in the outer room. "Xiaoan, I have something I want to tell you." Chen Yuan deliberately lowered her head as if embarrassed, but right after that she caught the smell of something fragrant, as if the family had just stewed meat. "Whatever it is, come inside and talk." Chen Yanfang quickly stopped her and pulled Chen Yuan, about to head into the room. "Sister-in-law, Yuan is here? Come in and warm up." Fang An had just wanted to stop them. Hearing the noise, Fang Deming called out at the top of his voice. "That's right, come in. The Kong was just heated. It's nice and warm inside." Chen Yanfang shot Fang An a look and pulled Chen Yuan into the east room. Inside the room, Fang An and Fang Xiqing were gnawing on rabbit meat, their mouths shiny with grease. As soon as Chen Yuan came in and saw that big basin of rabbit meat on the table, she subconsciously swallowed. Yuan, sit on the Kong, it's warm there." This morning Xiaoan caught a few rabbits and came back and stewed some. "You haven't eaten yet, have you?" Fang Deming explained with a cheerful smile, and even specifically emphasized that Fang An had caught them. After all, in Fang Deming's eyes, Xiaoan was at a disadvantage in his relationship with Chen Yuan. Chen Yuan's father drove for the production team, the four-wheeler used for plowing in the spring, and no one but her father could operate it, so her family was fairly well off. You could tell just from what Chen Yuan was wearing. Her floral padded jacket was brand new, and her pants were the fitted kind bought in the county. And there were even 2 little rabbits printed on her white gloves, all of it the latest fashion. By contrast, Fang An's family's circumstances were already poor, and now he had also been fired by the construction team. So there was no way Chen Yuan's father would agree to this marriage. But fortunately, Fang An had changed for the better. Catching pheasants and rabbits like this showed he was quite capable too. If Yuan's father found out, maybe he might reconsider. "Not yet," Chen Yuan replied softly. "Perfect, have a few bites here, it just came out of the pot, and it's still hot." Chen Yanfang busied herself telling Ying to get a chair. "Sister-in-law, this isn't appropriate." Chen Yuan pretended to decline, but her eyes were fixed intently on the rabbit meat. "What's inappropriate about it? We're all family. I'll go get a bowl." Chen Yanfang pulled Chen Yuan down to sit, and was just about to head to the kitchen when Fang An, standing in the doorway, stopped her. "Sister-in-law, no need to get one." Chen Yuan, weren't you here to break up with me? Don't delay the important matter. Break up? The smiles on Fang Deming and Chen Yanfang's faces instantly froze. But Fang An and Fang Xiqing didn't pay much attention, their eyes fixed only on the rabbit meat in their bowls. "Xiaoan, what are you saying?" Chen Yanfang nudged Fang An. Chen Yuan had just sat down when she froze. She had originally planned to say it after eating. "Zhao Shuang came looking for you last night. He probably told you that I was fired," Fang An added. "Yes." Chen Yuan looked somewhat embarrassed, not expecting Fang An to already know. "I heard from Zhao Shuang that you were fired by the construction team, and my dad knows too. The construction team isn't that strict, so if you were suddenly fired, the impact is pretty serious. You definitely didn't do anything good. I don't want to be affected, so, fine, I agree to break up. From now on, the two of us have nothing to do with each other. Just don't tell people outside that I'm your partner. The family didn't prepare that much food, so I won't see you out." Without waiting for her to finish, Fang An directly ordered her to leave. Chen Yuanyuan blinked her big eyes, dumbfounded. What he's saying sounds like all my lines. "Xiaoan, what breakup or not? Let Yuanyuan have a bite to eat, and after she's done, you escort her back and have a good talk with her father. There are still 2 rabbits outside. You can send them over." Chen Yanfang scolded Fang An while trying to smooth things over. "Keep the rabbits for the children to eat. Why send them to their family?" After saying that, Fang An looked at Chen Yuanyuan. "Why are you still here? Too scared to leave in broad daylight? Do I have to escort you? No need." Chen Yuanyuan shot to her feet, shot Fang An a glare, and walked out. But after only a few steps, she suddenly turned back. "Fang An, let me tell you, I'm the one who wants to break up with you. You're the one who shouldn't tell outsiders I'm your partner in the future." Chen Yuanyuan reminded him with a serious expression. "You're overthinking it. I'm afraid you won't deny it." Fang An waved his hand dismissively. "You." Chen Yuanyuan was so angry she was breathing heavily. "So you're actually afraid I'll hold you back? Fang An, why don't you take a look at yourself? With your family in this state, can you come up with a 200 yuan bride price? Even if you hadn't been fired, making only 20 or 30 a month, let alone a bicycle, you couldn't even afford a watch. These days, to marry a wife you need the 3 turnings and 1 sound. The 3 turnings refer to a bicycle, a watch, and a sewing machine. The sound refers to a radio. Put together, those items would cost at least 400 or 500. Chen Yanfang had originally wanted to persuade her to stay, but hearing that, she could only lower her head silently. Fang Deming also let out a helpless sigh. Yet Fang An was amused by what she said. "If you knew that, why did you agree? Couldn't find anyone else, huh? A 200 yuan bride price isn't really worth it. 2 yuan is more like it. Come to think of it, I really do have 2 yuan in my pocket, but marrying you? Forget it. Just you wait." Chen Yuanyuan angrily threw out those words and strode home in a huff. Seeing her leave, Fang An went back to the table and ladled soup for his elder brother and sister-in-law. "Xiaoan, Yuanyuan, she?" Chen Yanfang stood in the doorway, having lost her appetite too. Yuanyuan wasn't wrong. The family's circumstances really were poor. They couldn't even afford a watch that cost a few dozen yuan, and the only 20 yuan she had was what Fang An gave her yesterday. "Sister-in-law, eat. Why bring her up?" Fang An smiled calmly, but Chen Yanfang was still a little worried. "Xiaoan, the family really doesn't have much money. Take this 20, buy Yuanyuan something to coax her, and see if you can think of another way." Chen Yanfang dug out the money from the cabinet and handed it to Fang An couldn't help but freeze for a moment. In his previous life, his sister-in-law had never said anything like this, but thinking about it, that made sense too. In his previous life, on this very day, his elder brother had just committed suicide, and his sister-in-law was crying her heart out, not knowing that Chen Yuanyuan had come to break up with him. Later, the old women in the production team mentioned it while gossiping at the village entrance, and his sister-in-law only found out when she happened to pass by and hear them. "Your sister-in-law is right. With our family situation, it's hard to get a wife too. After dinner, take the rabbit along too and hurry to go smooth things over." Fang Deming also tried to persuade Fang An. "Big brother, sister-in-law, don't worry about this. She came to break up with me right after I got fired. Was that someone who really wanted to live a good life together? Never mind that our family can't afford to marry her. Even if we could, I still wouldn't marry her. If it's over, it's over. I'll find someone else later." Fang An filled a bowl with hot soup and handed it to Chen Yanfang, then picked up his elder brother's bowl and continued serving. Fang Deming and Chen Yanfang exchanged a surprised glance, not expecting Fang An to say something like that. He used to dream of marrying Chen Yuanyuan and bringing her home. "All right, we'll listen to you. Then what kind of girl do you want to find in the future? Tell us first, so your sister-in-law can help keep an eye out for you." Fang Deming didn't say more and casually asked, "If I'm going to find someone, she'd have to be someone like my sister-in-law, someone who can take care of the family. Look how well sister-in-law takes care of you. Sister-in-law, eat first. I'll feed my big brother." Fang An carried the bowl and sat down on the edge of the Kong, spooned up some soup and blew on it to cool it a little before feeding it to Fang Deming. Chen Yanfang's eyes reddened. Her husband had only become paralyzed after Xiao and went to the county town. But every time Xiao and came back on break, he would go out right after eating and had never fed his elder brother, nor had he ever thought of taking over for her. Fang Deming took a sip of soup and grinned. Xiao went out to work for a while and finally grew up. Meanwhile, Chen Yuanyuan stopped at the fork on the west side of the road, clenched her little fists, and nearly went crazy with anger. "Damn Fang An. Have you forgotten how you chased after me back then? 2 yuan. Keep dreaming. Sooner or later I'll find someone 100 times better than you and make you mad to death. Chun Yuan shouted toward Fang An's house, and only then did she feel a little better, stomping home in a huff. But as she walked, Chun Yuan suddenly slowed down and muttered, "Huh? Could Fang An have done it on purpose?" When the two first met, Fang An had catered to Chun Yuan's every whim and had never spoken to her like this. Whenever Chun Yuan wanted something to eat or wear, Fang An would find a way to buy it for her. When he had no money, he'd buy on credit at the small shop and have his elder brother and sister-in-law pay it back for him. Later, after Fang An joined the construction crew, when Chun Yuan agreed to marry him, she had even said that her father wanted a fairly large bride price and that she was afraid Fang An wouldn't be able to come up with it. But Fang An came up with a good idea, saying that when the time came they should pretend to break up first. His older brother and sister-in-law would be afraid he couldn't find a wife, so they would definitely do everything they could to come up with the money. Thinking of this, Chun Yuan smiled smugly. Fang An catching rabbits must be to coax his older brother and sister-in-law first, then force them to come up with the bride price. Once the bride price was delivered, she would take it first. As for whether she would marry him, that was another matter. Even if she didn't marry him in the end, there was no way she'd return it. It wasn't like she forced Fang An to bring it over. At this moment, Fang An might already be asking for the bride price. It wouldn't be long before he came with rabbits to coax her. He didn't even tell me beforehand, and even drove me away right to my face. Forget 2 rabbits. Even if he gave me 10, I still wouldn't forgive him. Chun Yuan hummed a little tune as she walked home. And just the thought of eating rabbit tonight made her mouth water. The next second she started running, hurrying home first to make some salt water so that when the rabbits arrived, she could soak them in it to get rid of the gamey smell. That way they'd taste better stir-fried. Chun Yuan hurried home, unlocked the door, and went inside, rummaging out a small iron basin from the dish rack. 2. Probably not enough, right? Muttering to herself, Chun Yuan took out a slightly bigger one, poured in half a basin of water, sprinkled in some salt, and tossed it onto the stove before going back into the room. Her parents had gone out early in the morning. In winter there was no work in the production team, so with nothing to do, the two of them would go to the shop to play cards and chat, often staying there the whole day. Chun Yuan wasn't interested in any of that, and usually went out to play with her friends. But today she wasn't in the mood to go out either. She ran back to her little room, took a chair, sat by the window, and stared at the front gate with a beaming smile, waiting for Fang An to come see her. At the same time, after feeding his older brother Fang An was sitting at the dining table gnawing on rabbit meat, not remembering this at all. In his previous life, Fang An really had said those things. But the current Fang An no longer remembered them. After all, who could remember something from more than 40 years ago so clearly? Besides, even if he really did remember, there was no way he would do that. The family ate rabbit meat while chatting. It wasn't until around 8 o'clock that they finished. Fang An helped his sister-in-law and Ying clear the table, while Fang Xiqing sat in his chair rubbing his belly, not stepping forward to help clean up. Fang Xiqing. Fang Ying called out coldly. "Sis, I'll pick up in a bit." "Hick, the dishes." "Ha ha." Fang Xiqing pouted pitifully, and even let out a full belch while speaking, making the whole family burst into laughter. "Xiqing ate too much?" Fang An teased casually as he held a large bowl for the bones. I can't eat any more, hick. This child. Hurry up and walk around to help your digestion. Don't stuff yourself sick. The moment you get meat, you just go all out eating." Chen Yanfang scolded with a stern face. Fang Xiqing pushed himself up with the chair and shuffled outside in tiny steps. When he reached the open space in the outer room, he started walking in circles like a donkey turning a mill. After Fang Ying gathered the bowls and chopsticks and went to the kitchen to wash them, she glanced at Fang Xiqing and couldn't hold back her laughter. When Chen Yanfang saw that, she glared at her, then poured the remaining half basin of meat into the pot. Adding the portion that hadn't been served, it could still fill a big basin. There was no need to cook anything new tonight. When heating the Kong, just add some water and warm it up, and it would be enough to eat. Fang An wiped the table clean and put it away, then carried the large bowl of bones and was just about to go out. But when he reached the door, he turned back. At this time, quite a few families in the team kept dogs, but his older brother's family had little grain. Even there wasn't enough for people to eat. So who would have the energy to keep one of those? Left with no choice, Fang An could only dump the bones into the trash, put down the large bowl, and want to help with the washing. "Shaoan, stop working already and hurry back to your room to rest for a bit. You got back so late last night and got up early again this morning. Go back and catch up on some sleep. Chen Yanfang stopped Fang and with a cheerful smile. In the past, Chen Yanfang would have been more than happy for Fang and to lend a hand. But these past 2 days, Xiaoan had been catching pheasants and rabbits, and even in the bitter cold he kept running around outside, so he hadn't exactly had it easy either. And it wasn't as if she and the child couldn't handle this little bit of work. It's fine, I'm not sleepy. Fang An was telling the truth. After being reborn, his physical condition was much better, unlike in his previous life, when he always felt sleepy. And his physical fitness had improved a lot too. At the very least, going out late at night no longer felt cold. Listen to your sister-in-law and go get some sleep first. Fang An couldn't argue with Chen Yanfang, so he could only let his sister-in-law and Ying keep busy there. But Fang An wasn't idle at the moment either. He wrapped himself in his thick cotton coat, went outside, and used a big broom to sweep the accumulated snow in the yard. In the morning, Chen Yanfang had only swept the narrow path from the house door to the front gate, and hadn't swept the rest. It wasn't that Chen Yanfang was lazy. The main reason was that there was too much work at home. Cleaning the places people walked most often saved some effort, so she could get more of the other chores done. After all, when one person was holding up the whole family, it wasn't just money and grain that had to be budgeted carefully. Even work had to be planned carefully, or there really was no way to get it all done. Looking through the window, Chen Yanfang saw this, and smiled in relief. She put away the dishes and coarse flour flatbreads, then turned and went back to the east room to sweep up the crumbs that had fallen on the floor. What did Xiaoan go out to do again? Fang Deming guessed it was Fang, and as soon as he heard the door open, Ying was washing dishes in the outer room, and from where he lay in the east room, he could hear the sounds. That child Xiqing had eaten too much and was pacing in circles in the outer room, so he could hear him burping too. During this period, although Fang Deming's body couldn't move, he had unintentionally trained his ears instead. He's out there sweeping snow. Chen Yanfang said with a beaming smile, you know, after Xiaoan went out on this trip, he really has become more sensible. This child has finally grown up. Those 30 yuan weren't spent for nothing. Fang Deming couldn't stop nodding. But when the 30 yuan was brought up, Chen Yanfang's movements suddenly paused. She leaned close to her husband and muttered softly, hey, tell me, if Xiaoan has become so sensible, how could the construction team have fired him? Yuan said he hadn't done anything good, but what could he have done on his own? Even if he drank a little and played some cards, that shouldn't have gotten him fired. Fang Deming frowned when he heard that. Yesterday, as soon as Fang An came back, Fang Deming had asked him what had happened. But Fang An hemmed and hawed for a long time without saying anything, then turned around and went back to his room to sleep. When he woke up, he ran off to catch pheasants. What did Old Yang say? Fang Deming asked in a low voice. Old Yang said he didn't know either, and when he asked the construction team, they didn't reply. After Fang An went to sleep, Chen Yanfang had gone to ask Old Yang on purpose, but still didn't get any news. How about asking Xiaoan again? We don't know what's going on over there, and we hadn't asked before. Forget it. If he could say it, he would have said it already. It's probably something he doesn't want to tell us. Or maybe he doesn't know what happened either. Let's talk about it later. It's still good that he's become sensible now. At the very least, he can help you with some work, otherwise life really would be hard to get through. Fang Deming let out a sigh. Yesterday, he had even planned to kill himself, thinking it would save the family some grain. Once the production team started work again after the new year, Xiaoan and his sister-in-law could do a little more work, and gradually life would get better. But that brat Fang An insisted that if he died, he wouldn't care anymore. With his wife and 2 children, an orphan widow and her children would definitely be bullied. So how could they go on living? Stop thinking such wild thoughts for no reason. Now that Xiaoan has changed for the better, the family's grain may not be enough, but he can go out and find food, so somehow they can make it through this year. Once the production team starts work next year, as long as Xiaoan can work, they'll be able to get their life back on track somehow. Chen Yanfang persuaded him with reddened eyes. But Fang Deming just stared at the newspaper-pasted ceiling without saying a word. Chen Yanfang secretly wiped away a tear and didn't press further. She picked up the broom and continued sweeping the debris on the ground. Yesterday, Chen Yanfang had already realized that her husband wanted to kill himself, but no matter how long she tried to persuade him, she couldn't change his mind. If Xiaoan hadn't said those things, she really wouldn't have been able to stop him. At this moment, Fang Deming didn't state his position, and she didn't understand what he meant either, but at least one thing was certain. He still hadn't given up that idea. Outside the door, Fang An swept the accumulated snow clean from the yard, then swept the area in front of the main gate and the passageway on the east side of the house. The main gate to his elder brother's house was right in the center, and on both sides of the passage after entering were small round plots. Directly opposite was the wall buttress on the west side of the east room. A cold shed had been built on the open ground east of the house, and inside were 2 pens, one for pigs and one for chickens. Normally there was no shortage of meat in winter, but this summer the chickens got sick, and before autumn arrived they were all gone, and his sister-in-law had long since stewed them. Further north of the cold shed was the outhouse, with piles of cold chunks and stacked firewood beside it. After sweeping the snow, Fang An leaned against the wood of the cold shed to catch his breath. Looking at the dozen or so dry branches left in the firewood pile, he put away the large broom and went back inside. Elder brother. As soon as Fang An entered the east room, he saw his sister-in-law wiping away tears. Then, when he turned and saw his elder brother's expression, he guessed the reason. Xiaoan, what's wrong? Fang Deming asked curiously. I was thinking of asking the production team to lend me a cart and finding out how much it costs now. Fang An sat on the edge of the Kong and didn't say much more. He had tried to persuade him yesterday, and it was useless. His elder brother was simply a stubborn old mule. Better get the family situation sorted out first. Once the family no longer lacks grain or money, then he can try persuading Big Brother to kill himself again and see whether he'd still do it then. What do you need to borrow a cart for? Chen Yanfang asked in confusion. I was thinking of going up the mountain tomorrow to get some firewood. No. Before Fang An could finish, Fang Deming flatly refused. The heavy snow has sealed off the mountain. Where are you going to haul firewood from? You haven't been to any of the nearby mountains before. If you can't make it back, who's going to go look for you? Big brother, listen to what you're saying. I'm a grown man. How could I get lost? Still no. Even if you can find the way, there are all kinds of things in those mountains. What if you run into a wolf? Not just you. Even when I could still walk, I didn't dare go. Fang Deming scolded him with a stern face. The kid had indeed become sensible, but how was he still so reckless? He dared to go anywhere, damn it. Fang An also started muttering when he heard that. In his previous life, when he worked as a forest ranger and lived in the mountains, he had never been afraid of wolves. If one came, he'd kill one. If 2 came, he'd kill the pair. But back then, he had a hunting rifle in his hands. Now he didn't dare act rashly. Speaking of which, it would be great if he had a gun. Creak. Just as he was muttering to himself, the door suddenly sounded. Uncle Yen. Fang Ying's voice came from the outer room. Ying, washing the dishes? The moment Fang An heard that voice, he immediately got an idea. Wasn't this old Yen the Lame, the production team's veteran hunter? Brother Yen, shall we came too? Before Chen Yanfang could go out to receive them, Yen Jinshan, leaning on a crutch and bringing his daughter, Yen Xiaowei with him, entered the east room. I came to check on Deming. Supporting himself with the crutch, Yen Jinshan slowly walked over and sat down beside Fang Deming. Aunt Fang, our hens laid 2 eggs at home. My dad said to bring them over for you and Uncle Fang to nourish yourselves. Wrapped in a black padded cotton coat with a ponytail, Yen Xiaowei had a faint smile on her fair face as she took out 2 eggs from each of her left and right pockets and handed them to Chen Yanfang. Brother Yen, what are you doing? In the middle of winter, the chickens hardly lay any eggs. Hey, just take them. Hardly laying doesn't mean they don't lay at all. I won't bring you any tomorrow. Yen Jinshan waved his hand, then turned to Fang Deming. How is it? Can you move around? After the new year, I'm still waiting to go catch fish with you. In my condition, what fish could I possibly catch? Fang Deming said with a bitter smile. To the east of Shuangma Ridge, there was a river called the Lynx River. Before Fang Deming became paralyzed, whenever production wasn't too busy, he often went fishing with old buddy Yen Jinshan and the others, then came back and had a few drinks. The Lynx River wasn't very deep, only 2 or 3 meters, but there were plenty of fish in it. Last year, Fang Deming even caught a big carp weighing 5 or 6 jin, and they stewed it that very night. Of course, when luck was bad, they could only catch some small fish. They weren't enough for stewing, but made into fish paste when they got back, they were still pretty tasty. If you can't catch them, can't you at least eat them? If you don't go, I'll throw you into the water, then fish you out after we're done catching fish. You, honestly. The 2 old brothers joked around. Chen Yanfang put away the eggs and brought a chair for Yen Xiaowei. Xiaoan, what are you spacing out for? Say hello. Fang Deming turned his head and scolded. Actually, it wasn't that Fang An didn't want to greet them. He was just busy figuring out how to ask Limp Yen for his hunting rifle. Uncle Yen. Fang An greeted him with a grin. What kind of uncle are you calling him? Fang Deming scolded. Look at your memory. When Xiaoan first came, didn't he always go out and play with Xiaowei and the others? And they all got along well, each calling the other however they liked. Chen Yanfang explained. But when she brought this up, she suddenly looked at Yin Xiaowei, her eyes instantly lighting up. Yin Xiaowei glanced at Fang An and said nothing. Yin Jinshan merely nodded and didn't pay Fang An any attention at all. Fang An had been in Shuangmo Ridge for more than 10 years. What kind of person he was, both of them knew perfectly well. He never missed drinking or playing cards, and never did any work at home. When Yin Jinshan had just come in, he had even seen Fang Yingying washing dishes, while Fang An was just sitting here without even offering to help his niece with some chores. If it weren't for Fang Deming's sake, Yin Jinshan wouldn't even want to acknowledge being called uncle. By the way, old Yin, can we still go up West Mountain now? Remembering that Xiao An wanted to go up the mountain, Fang Deming hurriedly asked. With legs like yours, you're still thinking of going up the mountain? Don't die in there. Yin Jinshan replied irritably. Not me. There's not much firewood left at home, and Xiao An said he wants to go up the mountain to get some. Fang Deming pointed at Fang An. You, want to go up the mountain? Yin Jinshan looked Fang An up and down. Yeah, coal is pretty expensive at this time, so I want to find some dry branches or something. Fang An nodded. That doesn't sound right. Deming, didn't you say your family had enough firewood to burn? Before winter, didn't old Lu say he'd get some for you? Why didn't you ask for more? Yin Jinshan pressed. Old Lu was the production team leader and was on very good terms with both Fang Deming and Yin Jinshan. Around the start of winter, old Lu really had brought this up, wanting to share over some dry branches his family had gathered, and, afraid Fang Deming wouldn't agree, had even specifically said Fang Deming could pay him back after recovering the next year. But at the time, no one had expected Fang An to come back. If old Lu was bringing over his family's supply, how could I possibly take that? No, at the time we really did have enough firewood at home. The main thing is, I got fired, so no matter how many heated kangs there are, it's still not enough. Fang Deming didn't mention Fang An's matter, but Fang An brought it up himself. Xiao An. Qin Yanfang kept making signals with her eyes, staring closely at Yin Xiaowei's reaction. Yin Jinshan glanced coldly at Fang An. Then his expression eased a little the next second. In this day and age, what decent person gets fired from a construction team? He must have committed some kind of principled offense. Luckily, Fang An could admit it openly and take responsibility for what he'd done. But thinking about it carefully, this sure as hell wasn't anything glorious. You think admitting this and taking responsibility makes you look good? But what could Yin Jinshan, an outsider, really say? His surname wasn't Fang. The mountains are sealed off by heavy snow now. If you know the way, you can still go up. But there are lots of wild animals in the mountains, so if you can avoid going, you'd better not. How about this? Uncle Yin, why don't you lend me your gun? If I shoot a wolf, I'll give you half when I get back. Before Yin Jinshan could finish speaking, Fang An tested the waters with the question. These days, every household was short on meat. Limp Yin was the team's old hunter, and for 3 generations his family had hunted around here. Logically speaking, his family shouldn't have been short on meat, but when Yin the Lame was young, he ran into a tiger in the mountains. While firing his gun and running away, he wasn't paying attention and fell into a ditch, breaking his leg. From then on, Yin the Lame's family was cut off from meat and could only earn work points like everyone else. Later, when Yin Xiaowei was born, everyone in the production team thought she would learn hunting from her father. After all, in those days women could hold up half the sky, so it didn't matter that she was a girl. Once she learned the skill, she could still hunt. But Yin the Lame explicitly forbade Yin Xiaowei from touching a gun, let alone going hunting. He wouldn't even let her go up the mountain to gather wild vegetables, afraid something might happen to the child in the mountains. However, after Fang An settled in Minshan in his previous life, he once heard villagers who went into the mountains say that Yin the Lame seemed to have come down with some illness. To treat her father's illness, Yin Xiaowei took a hunting rifle into the mountains. It was the girl's first time going, and she didn't understand anything. She hadn't gone far before she was bitten to death by wolves. If old Lu hadn't promptly brought people up to look for her, a few minutes later, they probably wouldn't even have been able to find the body. But then again, Fang An had asked Yin the Lame to borrow a gun, and going up the mountain alone to take such a risk was literally staking his life on it. If he got something and split half of it, that was already quite generous. However, the moment Yin Jinshan heard that he wanted to borrow the gun, his face darkened at once. Borrow a gun? What's a kid hunting wolves for? If you run into one, it'll eat you. Not lending it. Uncle Yin, it's not that serious, meat. Half of it. Fang An spoke while gesturing, refusing to believe the cranky old man wouldn't take the bait. Go, go, go. I said I'm not lending it. Borrow it wherever you want. Deming, keep your kid in line. Yin Jinshan turned his head away and wouldn't even look. Uncle Yin, Xiao An. Fang An still wanted to persuade him, but his elder brother stopped him. Old Yin is right. You've never even been up the mountain, so what are you borrowing a gun for? Enough. I'm not going to keep chatting with you all. If you don't have firewood, come get some from my place. Come on, let's go home. Yin Jianshan grabbed his crutch and headed out. Brother Old Yin, stay a little longer. Qin Yanfang hurriedly tried to keep him there. Not staying. There's still work to do at home. I'll come another day. Uncle Yin, I mean it. Whatever I get, I'll split it. Fang An still wouldn't give up. Yin Jianshan quickly picked up his pace, pulling Yin Xiaowei along as he headed home without even turning his head. Xiaowei, come over and play sometime. Qin Yanfang called toward the doorway, and only after the two had gone far did she take Fang An back inside. Xiaoan, look at you. Why would you ask him to borrow a hunting rifle? As soon as the two of them returned to the east room, Fang Deming complained with a bitter smile. Aren't you and sister-in-law worried it'd be unsafe for me to go up the mountain? With a gun, if I kill a wolf, we'd have meat to eat. Uncle Yin's family hasn't had meat in a long time either. Fang An sighed, truly unable to understand why Yin the Lame wouldn't lend it. Actually, Old Yin is a pretty straightforward guy. The problem is, borrowing that thing just won't do. He has only two treasures in his house. One is his daughter Xiaowei, and the other is that gun of his. These past few years, his legs and feet haven't been good enough for him to go up the mountain, but he still takes that gun out every day to wipe it down. He doesn't let anyone touch it, and yet you asked to borrow it. Fang Deming patiently explained. All right, we'll think of some other way about the firewood. Don't go up this mountain. That's right. Xiaoan, the mountain is too dangerous. We wouldn't feel at ease with you going by yourself either. Qin Yanfang also tried to persuade him. Hearing his sister-in-law's words, Fang An suddenly had an idea. Big brother, I never said I was going up the mountain by myself. My co-worker's home is in the Little Tiger Brigade behind West Mountain. I'll go with him tomorrow. And he needs to get firewood too. Just so happens his father has a gun and is also an old hunter, so even if we run into wolves, it'll be fine. Then why are you borrowing a gun? Fang Deming asked with a frown. Wasn't I thinking of hunting something to eat? If he got something, he wouldn't possibly give me any, right? Fang An casually made up a reason. Only then did Fang Deming nod in relief. If someone's going with you, then I suppose that's all right. But borrowing the production team's horse cart won't be easy. Old Lu and I are on good terms, but I can't go empty-handed. Bring those two rabbits along. Absolutely not. The rabbits are for the children to eat. Fang An refused decisively, then muttered while looking out the window. Come to think of it, it's not easy to get anything in broad daylight. If only there were a gun, wouldn't it be fine to go up the mountain and hunt something? But I haven't heard of anyone nearby having a hunting rifle. No. I need to get Yin the Lame's hunting rifle into my hands soon. It's a waste leaving it with him. Xiaoan, listen to your elder brother. After sweeping the floor, Qin Yanfang also joined in trying to persuade him. There's nothing much at home that's fit to give. Just send the rabbits over. We've already eaten meat for 2 days. Can we eat it every day? In truth, Qin Yanfang wanted to keep them too. What mother wouldn't want her children to eat more good food? But borrowing the horse cart to haul firewood is serious business. We can't end up with nothing to burn when the coldest days of winter arrive. Eating 2 fewer meals of meat over this is no big deal. We won't go hungry. No, we agreed to save them for the children. I'll see if I can take something else. As Fang An spoke, he was about to head to the side room to see what tools the family still had. There's no way to get this hunting rifle anytime soon, so going up the mountain to hunt is probably hopeless. You can't catch pheasants or rabbits in broad daylight anyway, so I still have to think of something else to eat. Xiaoan, stop puzzling over it. Fang Deming raised a hand to stop him. Don't you know the situation in our production team? At most, there are only 3 vehicles, 1 4-wheeler, 2 horse carts, plus 2 mules, and 1 donkey. If you're going into the mountains to haul firewood, you'd at least have to borrow a mule. But in recent years the team has had quite a lot of land, and 1 4-wheeler isn't enough. During spring plowing and autumn harvest, they even have to use the mules. Everyone in the team knows it, and dozens of eyes are watching. If you don't bring something decent, it won't be easy for Old Lu either. After all, that horse cart belongs to the team, not to Old Lu himself. Fang Deming explained patiently. There are a lot of mules in the northeast, and most of them are horse mules. Mules are hybrids of horses and donkeys, and there are only 2 kinds in total. One born from a mare is called a horse mule, and one born from a female donkey is called a donkey mule. Horse mules are larger and eat more. Donkey mules are smaller and eat less. But donkey mules aren't as strong as horse mules, though their endurance is much better. So for hauling things and the like, they are usually better than horse mules. But in those days no one made such fine distinctions. Horse mules and donkey mules were all just called mules. As long as it's a mule, it's more enduring than a horse and stronger than a donkey, basically an all-rounder. Chen Yanfang found this difficult as well. If the cart belonged to old Lu, borrowing it for a day first and slowly repaying the favor later wouldn't really be a problem. But if they were borrowing the team's cart, then old Lu wouldn't just be old Lu, but Captain Lu. When asking someone for help, how could you let them do the favor first and repay it afterward? That's exactly where the difficulty lay. Of course, the main thing was that Xiao An didn't want to send the rabbits over. But in the end, wasn't it all because of that brat Fang Xiqing? If he hadn't been clamoring for meat every day, would Xiao An have been so reluctant? Big brother, even if this cart didn't belong to the team, it still wouldn't be easy for us to borrow it empty-handed. You and sister-in-law don't need to worry about this. I'll think of a way. Wrapping himself in his thick cotton-padded coat, Fang An went to the side room. Yanfang, go see what Xiao An is fixing up. Don't let him just make do with something and take it over. Fang Deming urged while looking out the window. He mustn't. Xiao An grew up after going out for a while. He can't do that. Let's take a look first. If it really doesn't work, tonight I'll learn from Xiao An how to set snares and see whether we can catch some more rabbits or pheasants or something. Chen Yanfang wiped the cabinet, took off her slippers, and climbed onto the Kong. Helped Fang Deming turn over, then took a towel to wipe him down and squatted beside him to massage him. Ever since Fang Deming became paralyzed, Chen Yanfang had learned this skill from Dr. Shun in the team. Although it couldn't prevent Fang Deming from developing bed sores, it could at least relieve some of the pain and keep them from forming so quickly. Meanwhile, Fang An searched the side room several times over and still couldn't find anything usable. Aside from the wire dip net and machete used the past 2 days, the rest were all iron picks, hoes, and 4-pronged forks, things normally used for yard work and farm labor. Using this stuff to hunt for food? What a joke! Fang An muttered as he walked out the door, heading for the outhouse to take a leak. But before he finished, he accidentally caught sight of the iron spike standing beside the outhouse. This iron spike was made of iron, with a thin pointed tip that could break ice. Every household in the Northeast had to keep one. After all, the team's toilets were all pit latrines. In winter, when the outhouse froze up, this thing was used to break it into chunks and clear it out. Once it was cleaned, it could last another year. Fang An gave himself a shake, pulled up his pants, grabbed the iron spike, and smiled. He went back to the side room, picked up the iron pick, dip net, and bamboo basket, and jogged all the way to the East River. When Lame Yin came by just now, he had even mentioned to his elder brother that they should catch some fish. But at the time, Fang An was only thinking about the hunting rifle and hadn't listened carefully, nearly forgetting that there was a river east of Shuangma Ridge. This river's source was the Songjiang. 3 flowers, 5 luo, 18 zi. Most kinds of fish could be found here. Fang An set down the bamboo basket and, following the memories of his previous life, found a deeper spot and started digging. The shallow parts of this East River were 2 or 3 meters deep, and the deeper parts were 4 or 5 meters. After leaving Shuangma Ridge in his previous life, Fang An hadn't come here much. Later, when he returned to help develop the village, this river was already completely ruined. The 2 upstream villages had treated the riverside like a garbage dump, and the river water became polluted, leaving no fish in it at all. Logically speaking, Fang An shouldn't have known much about this place. But in his previous life, when he used to fool around with Zhao Shuang and the others, every summer Fang An would come to the river to take a bath and catch a few fish. It was just that every time he caught fish, he roasted them on the spot and ate them, never thinking of bringing a few home. Fang An sighed and kept chiseling. There wasn't much technique to cutting an ice hole. As long as you had the strength, you could do it. First, find a flat spot and clear away the snow, then check whether there are any cracks nearby or places where the ice is too thin. You absolutely couldn't touch either of those spots. If it cracked and you fell in, there was a 99% chance you wouldn't make it back out. Once he made sure the area was safe, he took the iron spike and started hammering downward, knocked out an opening, and then widened it. Once it was widened enough, he used the dip net to scoop out the floating ice on top, and that counted as one finished ice hole. But while the job sounded easy, it was exhausting to actually do. Just chiseling out a single ice hole took Fang An more than 40 minutes. By the time he had scooped out the floating ice and finished setting it up, Fang An was already drenched in sweat and leaning against a nearby tree trunk, gasping for breath, looking at the ice hole with a bitter smile. This was only because it was the 1980s. In the modern future, who would still need to chisel by hand? For a few hundred yuan, you could buy an ice auger, and in 40 minutes it could drill more than a dozen holes, and that would still be considered slow drilling. After resting for a while and catching his breath, Fang An still leaned against the tree and didn't hurry to scoop anything up. In winter, when the river's surface froze over, the fish below were all short of oxygen, But these fish weren't immortals. They still needed some time to find the opening. Using that time, Fang An grabbed some dry grass and branches and lit a fire, sitting beside it to warm up a bit. He had just worked up a sweat, and the undershirt underneath was soaked through. If he didn't warm himself by the fire, it would be easy to freeze and catch a cold. Although his physical condition had improved a lot after being reborn, the body was still the capital of revolution, so he couldn't abuse it like that. Fortunately, after sitting for more than 10 minutes, his body warmed up. Fang An picked up the dip net and crept over lightly, but after looking carefully for a while, he didn't notice any movement and was just muttering to himself about whether he should make another hole. But right after that, a dark shadow suddenly swam across the water's surface. Fang An gripped the dip net tightly with both hands and slowly lowered it. Once the net sank into the water, he abruptly stirred it in a circle and then scooped upward. Fang An could clearly feel that the net was a bit heavy, so he leaned back to use the force. Splash! The instant he lifted the dip net up, Fang An fell right onto his backside. But Fang An had no mind to rub his butt. He hurriedly scrambled up to check. Scattered across the ice were 5 small crucian carp, only about as long as a palm. Fried, they would still be passable. But the weight of those 5 was obviously not enough. Even in the water, they shouldn't have been that hard to lift. Fang An looked up into the distance and suddenly noticed a dark shadow bouncing around wildly in the snow. When he got closer and looked, it was actually a big carp over 30 centimeters long. Heh! Fang An immediately laughed out loud, grabbed it by the gills, and with a backhand toss threw it into the bamboo basket. He hadn't expected to get a big one on the very first net. But one carp was nowhere near enough. At the very least, he had to get 2. Eagerly rubbing his hands together, Fang An crouched on the ice with the dip net, scooping up whenever he saw a dark shadow. Before long, there were already 13 small crucian carp, 8 bullhead fish, 1 large 33 centimeters carp, and 1 large grass carp over 20 centimeters long in the bamboo basket. As for the remaining dozen or so small ones, Fang An didn't know what species they were either. Judging by their appearance, they seemed to be yellow catfish. In his previous life, Fang An didn't really like eating fish, so he didn't know much about these. He only remembered there was a kind of fish called sandao-lin. The scientific name for sandao-lin is mirror carp. This kind of fish doesn't have many scales or many bones. Not only is it easy to clean, it's also more convenient to eat. However, in the early 1980s, this kind of fish had not yet begun to be introduced. At the very least, they'd have to wait another 2 years. Fang An scooped up another large netful and, without even checking what kinds of fish were inside, picked them up, tossed them into the basket, and kept scooping. In the blink of an eye, an hour had passed, and the firewood by the river had already gone out. But not only did Fang An not feel tired, he became more and more energized the more he scooped. Before he knew it, there was another carp nearly 30 centimeters long in the basket. At a glance, he could also see 5 or 6 10 centimeters white fish. As for those small crucian carp and yellow catfish, there were already too many to count. With just these, whether for giving away or eating at home, there was already more than enough. But Fang An still didn't stop. Gripping the dip net with both hands, he kept staring. Achoo! Suddenly, Fang An sneezed and came back to his senses. Only then did he feel a bit cold, and he quickly put away the dip net. Turning his head to look at the fish in the basket, Fang An suddenly understood why those fishing guys could sit there for an entire day. The old saying was right. Fish have fire on them. No matter how much you catch, you don't feel tired, and the more you catch, the more addictive it gets. Fang An put away the dip net and the pickaxe, then turned and saw dark shadows in the water again. But no matter what, he wasn't going to scoop anymore. He picked up chunks of snow and threw them into the ice hole. This was something he had seen online in his later life. He had heard that if you cover the ice hole with snow, it won't freeze solid. Next time he came, he would only need to tap it lightly a couple of times to break it open. But Fang An wasn't sure whether it would actually work. He'd know the next time he came. After covering the ice hole, Fang An slung the basket on his back, picked up the dip net, iron pry bar, and pickaxe, and strode home. When he had tidied up in the morning, he remembered there was still a basin of rabbit meat in the pot, which should be enough for lunch. But considering Ying and Siqing's appetites, there probably wouldn't be much left after they finished. Just as well, now that he had caught fish, they could go home and stew fish for dinner. As for the family's original 2 meals a day, starting today, it would be changed to 3 meals a day. Even in winter when there was no work, they still had to eat 3 meals. He couldn't let the 2 children go hungry. Meanwhile, after wiping down Fang Deming and giving him a massage, Qin Yanfang took out the pieces of wire used last night from the side room. and was studying them with the two children. Mom, that's not right. Look, the one uncle made is a slipknot. It can move back and forth. Fang An explained while holding the snare that hadn't caught the rabbit. Chen Yanfang glanced at it, took the pliers, undid it, and redid it. Mom, where did Uncle go? Did he go get some meat again? Fang Xiqing had stopped grinding after barely half an hour and squatted to the side, asking curiously. Fang An didn't dare make a sound and secretly looked at Chen Yanfang. Meat, meat, meat. You're asking for meat every single day? You're stuffed like that and still haven't had enough. Chen Yanfang scolded him with a cold face. If it weren't for this child, would his uncle have been unwilling to give him a rabbit? In this freezing weather, who knows what Xiao An went off to do? Creak. Just as Chen Yanfang was muttering, the door suddenly opened, and Fang An came in carrying a bamboo basket, shivering from the cold. Xiao An, what's wrong with you? Chen Yanfang was so startled that she hurriedly got up to meet him. There's already one paralyzed person in the house. They absolutely couldn't let Xiao An get frostbitten too. I got some fish. Fang An put down the bamboo basket and glanced at the stove pit. The Kong hadn't been heated at home at noon, but the stove was still smoldering, and sitting beside it could warm you up a bit. Fish. The two children curiously crowded over. Only then did Chen Yanfang notice the bamboo basket by the door, and she was startled when she saw the fish inside. Goodness, how did you get so many? Hurry up onto the Kong and warm yourself up. The fire was just started in the East Room's Kong.